Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's the last good evening, then we will say good night in the other room. We have to talk about building the innovation environment. I'm very honored and humbled to moderate such a panel with such distinguished guests and diversified, because each one represents a specific stakeholder part of the Greek economy. Let me say something about competitiveness, that it is not a fruit and it is not a low-hanging fruit, meaning that competitiveness is a culture and it flourishes only in ecosystem, as innovation flourishes among teams, not individuals. I say that it is a culture as it comprises more aspects of everyday life, and it includes from education to health, to the judicial, to the lifestyle, to the social care, to business and entrepreneurial environments, and so on and so forth. This year, the GIS Summit is discussing about the innovation from local to global, and innovation coming from and in crisis. We have in our session to discuss the Greek competitiveness story in terms of how the innovation economy has been built up to now and what it will be the next steps. We all know that as soon as we came out of the 10 years crisis, financial crisis, then we met COVID on the road. And after such a long confinement period, paralyzing the society and the market, but not completely due to government efforts, we are confronted by inflation and energy crisis and other geopolitical threats. However, we have achieved to regain trust, as we have already heard, within the international community and some billions of investments. It is a common understanding that innovation has been playing a key role in the growth and development of every economy. Everybody is using the term, but I'm not sure if everybody puts the same sense behind this word. Let's not confuse it with creativity. Let's not confuse it with research and development. Innovation is something new, either as a product or as a process, that the market is willing to buy and pay if it perceives that it has some value out of it. But let's go to our panelists. And if you have a different opinion about what I said about innovation, because I see that you do like that, Chrysos, you can comment. Starting from the minister, what are the priorities in your portfolio? We have divided in three parts the panel. So first of all, we are going to talk about the priorities. So Mr. Minister Dimas, your portfolio is research and technology in the Ministry of Development. And your achievements with the entrepreneurial ecosystem made Greece and you and your team famous all over the world. Could you please let us understand the priorities you had in making Greece innovative?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. So when I was a child, but to be honest, even today, one of my dreams was to time travel. So having the opportunity to travel back to the ancient times and meet the ancient Greeks, see some of the great achievements they actually performed. However, I would not want to travel back to 2015. And I'm saying that because if you actually compare the situation in Greece between 2015 and today, you will see some very impressive differences. First of all, in 2015, we were unable of having access to the financial markets. We entered a very difficult round of an unnecessary referendum, a bailout agreement which was unnecessary as well. Our unemployment rate was at sky-high levels, almost at 27, 28%. Youth unemployment was at more than 52, 53%. So the situation was extremely difficult, and we were talking about a Grexit at that moment. Today things have changed, and they have significantly changed. Allow me to say that the unemployment rate has reached a low level of the last 15 years. Growth rates are extremely high compared to other EU member states. Then we have access to the financial markets, and all these have been achieved in a difficult international environment, because we have to differentiate between the financial crisis, which was to a great extent an internal thing, and to the crisis, the multiple crises which we are dealing with in the last years, which are international phenomena. So that has to do with the pandemic crisis, the energy crisis, even the migration crisis. In fact, it is very specific that The Economist a week ago argued that Greece had the most improvement in terms of creating a business-friendly environment. And this is one of the key priorities for the government, including in my portfolio. So to become more specific, we have set 2 priorities that are measurable, two KPIs. First of all, we want to increase R&D expenditure in Greece. In fact, the goal that the EU Commission had set back in 2010 was that all EU member states must invest a percentage of 3% according to their GDP, equal to 3% of their GDP, in research and innovation. Greece was in a low position, and 2 years ago we were at 1.27%. Last year we had the largest increase that has ever been observed in the Greek state. It was an increase of 18%, raising a lot the bar, but we still have a lot to do. So first of all, increasing R&D expenditure is one measurable KPI in which we have shown amazing improvement. A second very important KPI has to do with the innovation ecosystem, which you rightly mentioned. So if we take the European Innovation Scoreboard, again, Greece is underperforming according to its abilities. 2 years ago, we were among the 5 EU member states with the greatest improvement on a year-to-year basis. Last year, we were among the 3 member states with the largest improvement. We hope that next year we will be the number 1 member state in terms of improvement. So if I have to sum up, we want to transform Greece into the main research and innovation hub in the Balkans and Southeastern Europe. We want to convince Greeks that left the country during the financial crisis to come back to Greece, that there are important job opportunities in research and innovation, in research centers in universities, in companies that invest in R&D, in the startup ecosystem. And also we want to make them feel sure that they can be competitive at a global stage from Greece, whether that is in Athens, in Corinth, in Evros, or anywhere within the country.
And you focused on the priorities you have chosen.
Of course, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I will come back to you a little bit later. Mr. Dimopoulos, as the rector of the University of Athens, and following to previous discussions with Compete, there is a lot of debate about R&D, research and development, and their of universities and their cooperation with the market. Can you help us understand the priorities that you put in the university under your leadership?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the kind invitation and the opportunity to interact with you all here today. As the Minister mentioned, and according to a recent European Commission annual European Innovation report, there is a significant improvement in the position of Greece. However, we're still in the low level of ranking 20th among the 27 EU states. And as the Minister mentioned, there is a need for further improvement of coverage in research and development, both by the government and the private sector. And one problem that we are facing in the universities is that there is still a poor commercial and productive utilization of the university research output. And this was primarily due in the past to a wrong mentality and philosophy from the part of the universities, but most recently due to a lack of systematic interconnection and collaboration with industry and the business center in general. As a university in 2019, and even before the current legislation was implemented, we formed the Archimedes Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship of our university. And as I said, it started in 2019, and it functioned as a technology transfer office and business accelerator of our university. And this led to, first of all, a significant understanding among the members of our university of the necessity to connect with industry. And we were able to proceed with patents, which was something very difficult to do. And we were ready to take advantage of the current legislation that Minister Dimas implemented 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and thus to be able to accelerate this productivity. Furthermore, the current legislation of the Ministry of Education provides further opportunities for connection with industry and with companies. As you know, there is the possibility to have the so-called industrial PhDs that may give us the opportunity to have a greater connection. This is very important for us because apart from the Polytechnical School in our university, we have a very strong science school, including the best department of informatics, department of chemistry, of physics, biology, pharmacy. All these departments, you know, they are producing research which is not only published in highly cited journals, but also provide the opportunity for patents and applications from the industry.
Thank you, Mr. Dimopoulos. Mr. Doukidis, you are a well-known and well-active academic member in a top business school and researcher since I don't know how many years, since your laboratory, Eltran, is very active in European fund as well, and European funded projects. What do you think should be the priorities on education and research to make Greece innovative? I mean, you have such an experience in that.
Okay. Thank you for your invitation. Actually, I participated in a pre-summit discussion on local-based innovation, so I want to thank the organizers for extending your invitation also today. When we study top innovative countries globally, such as South Korea, Singapore, Finland, Israel, Netherlands, we can identify, I think, 5 characteristics that actually relate to education research. First of all, these countries have a very positive culture towards innovation. If in Greece we want actually to elevate this positive culture towards innovation, we have to focus to primary and secondary education. That is where you change attitude. So we have to be very long-term planners and actually develop special programs, special competitions, special initiatives in terms of innovative thinking, in terms of coding and programming, in terms of entrepreneurship. It takes time, but you cannot avoid it. Second characteristic relates to people, high educated people from universities. The rector actually mentioned that about the Athens University. What is the problem in Greece? In Greece, we are doing quite well in terms of numbers. However, in terms of quality, for those university graduates, we have 2 problems. We have a problem of skills and we have a problem of the specialization of their field. The third characteristic relates to business school education of startuppers. These very gifted and talented people are very often short-sighted. So their attitude toward business is two extreme cases. One, either they ignore it and say, well, I will never become an entrepreneur, or they believe it's too simple and it's too little of risk. So this is the role of business schools. And this is where we focus for the last 20 years with special programs, special degrees, an incubator, an accelerator, and all this stuff that we're doing for the last 22 years. The third characteristic is exploitation of academic research. Greece is doing extremely well in terms of research. For example, in the Horizon program, we ranked number 8 in terms of participation and number 11th in terms of budget. This is top of the list for a small country. However, when we talk about exploitation, we're almost bottom. And I'm talking about spin-offs, patents, etc., etc. And the last characteristic is what we call innovation ecosystems, regional innovation ecosystems. In Greece, beyond Athens or Attica, this is the region that Athens is based, we have Thessaloniki, we have the island of Crete, we have Patras, and lately Ioannina. And by the way, you're visiting Ioannina. Now, if you study those regional, local or regional innovation ecosystems, the main pillar of success is the local university. In all the cases I mentioned, the local university has high quality research and high quality education. However, we are still, as university professors or university staff, we have to realize that universities can play a more active role in the society as engines of development and prosperity. Okay, so this is something that we're not very much well trained to do that. However, we have indications that actually this is happening in the last 3 to 4 years. So these are.
Thank you, Mr. Doukidis. Very well said. We know we need to think how we can proceed from that. Mr. Gavrilidis, you represent in a way the market, let's say, in this panel. Not that Mr. Kavounidis is not, but you are from Lambda Development and you are the Chief Investment Officer, and you have a huge task. You have promised us to create the city of the future in Athens. Can you share with us the priorities regarding this future, what you have had in your mind starting with such a project, what inspired you, of course, where you are now and where innovation is in all that?
Thank you, thank you. I would like to thank all the organizers for inviting me here and discussing this very interesting topic. Indeed, at Lambda, we are very ambitious when it comes to the future. Our vision is really to create a global paradigm of smart living and smart and sustainable living for the new Ellinikon project. And our plan is to create there a new community that could master via the technology all the innovation in terms of the new home, the new work, and the new entertainment. And of course, one could ask, can Greece handle that? Can Greece have a global paradigm of smart city when we have the Seuls, the Singapores, the Californias of the world? And our reply to this is that the Ellinikon project is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity or a unique opportunity to change the way that the international community looks into the to Greece. It's a great opportunity to show to the world that Greece is not only about beautiful weather, good food, and nice places, but also about innovation. So even if we don't have 100% of the resources, of the expertise, or the ecosystems that are appropriate or required to develop this future, the city of the future, we need to develop them. We need really to create them. And we can do that if we set it as a priority. This is really a feasible target, and this is what really inspires us, and it is the driving force when we are designing this. Now, you have asked me about the priorities. There are a lot, but in terms of how we will design this new city of the future and what are the main aspects of it, of those priorities could be summarized in 3 categories. Priority number 1, we will put people first. So whatever we plan is not about fancy technologies. It has to make sense for the people. It has to really improve the quality of life and not just be a very fancy and nice technology. Priority number 2, whatever we design, all the infrastructure and all the systems we design needs to be future-proofed and resilient. So I have heard the General Secretary mention this. So it needs to adapt to all the changes and to all the rapid changes that are the case in this new world we live. And the third, all our design needs to be open and sustainable. And the concept of the 15-minute city we promote in Ellinikon, I'm sure you have heard of it, is a proof of what we mean by this priority. I think you have also asked me where we are standing right now. Actually, we just finished what we call the technology master plan and the business plan of what we call the Ellinikon Smart City project. And this project is composed of 3 main pillars. The first pillar is the Smart City pillar, which is about those use cases such as the smart mobility, smart parking, autonomous delivery, either through robots or even through drones, smart utility networks, smart waste management, and of course, smart environment monitoring with a way to prevent floods, fires, or any other disaster. And another use case in this pillar is what we call the Ellinikon Concierge, which is a consolidation of physical and digital concierge services through one platform through which the resident or the employee of the Ellinikon could, let's say, ask for a plumber or an electrician to come in their apartment, book a nanny or a chef, book a tennis court to play something, or even control its consumption of energy and even seamlessly pay all the bills. So those are some ideas and use cases we are planning for the first pillar. The second pillar is what we call the Smart City pillar, the Smart Energy pillar. And this is about creating a connected microgrid in the whole Ellinikon, through which the residents and the businesses of the Ellinikon could monitoring, manage and control their consumption, and regulation permitting, this is not the case right now, but regulation permitted could also transfer energy from one to other. For example, we may have a resident in the 3rd floor of a building that he or she is on holiday, and through his PV panel in the roof could sell or transfer energy to another resident or business in the ground floor where he or she is in need of this energy. So all these are very innovative ideas that we want to implement in Ellinikon. And the third pillar is what we call the smart ICT, information and communication technology, and through which pillar Ellinikon will offer ultra-fast, reliable fiber and 5G networks in Ellinikon, and through which we will permit very innovative solutions such as AR, AI, remote health, telesurgeries, and all the other innovative solutions that could be developed in the area. So this is where we stand. To give you a timeline, we have finished the technology master plan. We will start implementation in the first half of 2023 with the target to have all the systems up and running concurrent with the operation of the first buildings and developments in Ellinikon over the next 3 to 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Gavrilidis. Now, Mr. Kavounidis, you lead BCG, a leading company in consulting and advising businesses and governments in becoming more competitive and better placed in this ever-changing environment world. Talking about the priorities of Greece regarding promotion of innovation, what have you identified as key areas to promote? Did you see priorities promised in plans to be met in real life?
So thank you also from my side to the organizers for the opportunity to have this discussion with the distinguished panel. I was nodding at the beginning when you did your introduction because I also believe that innovation goes beyond what sometimes we get caught up in, talking about startups, talking about research and development. Innovation is about doing things differently in a novel way. And that means that innovation takes place in a very broad range of society and businesses. And we shouldn't forget that innovation takes place in small and medium enterprises, in doing things differently. And a lot of innovation comes from large corporations, particularly, I mean, if you think structurally of pharma companies, of big tech. So we need to keep that in mind. But each of these areas has a very different set of challenges to face. So we spoke already about, the ability to commercialize R&D. We've spoken about in previous sessions with some of the colleagues here on the ability to manage well IP, intellectual property. For startups, smaller companies, the application of their innovation, their technologies at scale, and their ability to have access to markets and to customers to apply things at scale, funding, for smaller businesses or startups, a quick-to-fail attitude, so something which is truly important both on the technology but also on the non-technology side, the ability to try things out quickly, figure out what works, what doesn't, and move on. Something that, for example, large corporations find particularly challenging is staying the course on innovation when you're under significant commercial pressure on the day-to-day and delivering your budget for the year. I think the colleagues here are in a much better place to comment on how much has been achieved. I think the minister quoted some numbers on the impact side. I think through a number of legislative and tax interventions and incentives, we've seen a step change, particularly on the startup ecosystems that are being developed, on the ability through the new legislation for R&D to be commercialized. If I had to pick a couple of things, I would start with the simplicity of commercializing R&D, because I think still it's a very bureaucratic, very difficult process with a lot of lack of clarity of how funds are managed. I would quote something we heard in a previous panel as well: the speed of the legal system remains for everything which requires significant investment and change and transformation. And I would concur that teaching children from a very young age how to think differently, think out of the box, think critically through changes in our education system is absolutely critical. But structurally, for me, something that we really need to focus on is collaboration across all these different areas. I think if you look at the challenges that the different groups face, you will find that if they work together, some of these challenges would synergize and compensate for each other. So finding ways structurally to bring large businesses closer to smaller businesses, to startups, to academia, would be incredibly impactful, whether that's through startup ecosystems and startup districts, whether it's through structural initiatives led by federations of industrial sectors or chambers of commerce, or even large flagship lighthouse projects like Ellinikon, where you can bring these players together and really let innovation accelerate and drive through the collaboration of all these different, different players with very different strengths and very different challenges each.
Thank you, Mr. Kavounidis. We have spent more than half of our time replying to my first question. So I just mentioned that to the panel. Mr. Dimas, Mr. Minister, how did you begin to make people believe in that and focusing in your initial plans? What are the driving forces of your initiatives?
Okay. One of our flagship actions, which was mentioned before, was to increase the financial incentives, especially the tax super deduction rates for expenditure for investment in R&D. We actually increased the super deduction tax rates from 130% to 200%, therefore making Greece the most competitive country in this sector in the European Union. And allow me to say that we have attracted a lot of important talent back to the country, and we have attracted a lot of important investments in R&D. I will mention companies like and technology, Microsoft, Cisco, EY, Amazon Web Services, Meta, Google, Applied Materials, and I can go
so
mention
on and so forth.
However, and despite the fact that it is extremely important to attract investment in these sectors because it creates good job opportunities, and when I mean good, I mean well-paid jobs for our scientists and entrepreneurs, whether keeping them into the country or repatriating them back. We don't only want, though, to have people in multinational companies or even Greek companies that boosted investment in R&D. So it was extremely important to beef up the innovation ecosystem in Greece. Allow me to say that up until recently, the Greek state did not know how many startups we had, in which sector they were, how many people they employed, what budgets they had. We actually lacked a definition about which companies consist of startups. And when you don't know which companies are the startup ecosystem, it's practically impossible to have a policy, or at least an effective policy, for the startup. So what did we do? We sat down with a council of experts we have in the National Council of Research, Innovation and Technology, ESETEC. We created a definition of what a company must have in order to be a startup. And through Elevate Greece, we created a registry, a startup registry. And through it, we have legislated for the first time tax incentives for angel investors, tax incentives for stock options, important actions in order to increase the liquidity of the innovation ecosystem due to the pandemic crisis. But we also attracted a lot of private sector actors in supporting with various ways, whether that is with money prizes, with access to global innovation centers multinational companies might have, free cloud services, mentoring services, and other important things that the innovation ecosystem needs in order to flourish. Apart though from that, we have created for the first time innovation clusters in the country, competence centers, because the benefits of R&D should not be available only for multinational companies that have the luxury to invest in R&D, but also it must be available for small and medium enterprises. Technology transfer offices, which the professor mentioned before. So we are trying to create more tools in order to spur this innovation. We also did change the framework for spin-off companies, and allow me to say that this is a very important action. I was in the University of Western Macedonia a month ago, and the professors there were telling me, in Kozani, they were telling me that 1 year ago they had one spin-off company. Now, with the new legal framework, they have 10 spin-off companies. And this is a huge achievement. And I would dare to say that not all of 10 will perhaps be viable companies. Okay, but it's an issue of mentality. It's what we were saying before, that it's absolutely necessary to link research with innovation and entrepreneurship. And this is in the University of Western Macedonia. Apart from that, though, as a member of the parliament, before 2019, I remember traveling around European cities, and I would see many Greek startuppers or entrepreneurs in physical grounds of innovation, and I would always think, why does somebody have to leave Greece to chase his dreams and try to become competitive at a global stage? So we are creating also physical grounds of innovation. We are creating an innovation which are
Parks.
yeah, which are innovation districts, parks, places where you have startups, spin-offs, universities, companies that invest in R&D, and you hope to cultivate the conditions in order to create the synergies between these actors for the production of innovative products and services. One in Attica, one in Thessaloniki, one in Yanina. So we are trying to promote important policies. Finally, we are also trying to make good use of the Greek diaspora, and one very important action was the creation of Archimedes, a Center for Artificial Intelligence, based in Athena Research Center, where we actually have attracted 3 world famous Greek academics from US university to share their time between Greece and the US in order to pass their knowledge to the Greek ecosystem. We also created a robotics institute. We also are creating we have created a genome institute with 4th in Crete. So we are trying to see how we can invest more in the Greek academics, in the Greek researchers, because we know that they have the talent, the capability to be competitive at a global stage. They need better conditions. We are trying to cultivate these conditions.
You have done a lot and you have succeeded a lot.
I have more to say, but I have time restrictions.
But you need to let the others. Yeah, definitely. Mr. Dimopoulos, can the university follow the market, or can the market lead the R&D of the university? How can we increase the output from this really substantial input that we have decided and we put in R&D? Because we have done a lot in input. What about the output? What is a solution? What are the major steps we have made so far to promote the innovation as a tool towards more competitiveness, not just more citations?
You're right. I think it goes both ways. I think, as the minister mentioned, we have a more appropriate legislation that may enhance this collaboration. However, we have several obstacles. For example, the bureaucracy that we have in Greece, which cannot be compared with the procedures and the time that is needed in other countries. And this is something that, unless we solve it in the future, it will be always a burden that will not allow the legislation to be implemented, because we may have laws, but laws have to be implemented by civil servants, by members of the university, and this is something that we have to look into. The other thing is that we need more staff positions, academic positions. And especially this should be developed in areas that we are needing this position. For example, in my university, we have a Department of Informatics with 40 members, 40 professors. And as the minister said, 1/3 of them work in Athena. So imagine if we were able to have double this number. This would really enhance the productivity of the department. For example, in the area of nursing, we are lacking qualified
nurses. More doctors than nurses.
Of course, we need more nurses than doctors. And so I believe that, this is another area that, we could have some help. Bureaucracy, staff members, but more focused in the need. And of course, as we all want to have a greater investment both from the public and the private sector. However, we have to acknowledge that with the last law, the most recent law from the university, from the Minister of Education, there is a real improvement of the means that members of the university, not only professors, but also members of the technical and educational staff, can increase their income by liberating, previous very rigid laws that were not giving the opportunity for such collaboration.
Thank you, Mr. Dimopoulos. Mr. Doukidis, you were the first chairman of TANEO. TANEO is the first Greek fund of funds. And currently you are a board member of HDB that we have listened previously, Mrs. Athina Hadjipetrou, who invests on venture capital funds to invest on startups. Since you have enough experience about funding, is the question, what are the current initiatives on this important aspect that boosts innovation, innovative entrepreneurship, startups or whatever, and not only?
Okay, yes. 2021 was a record year for Greece. Greek startups raised almost 1 billion euros. This might not sound very big. However, if you compare with less than 100 million that Greek startups were raising 3-4 years ago, it is a big thing. And also the good news is what Greek startups are doing in 2022. Actually, in the first half of 2022, they managed to raise double the amount of 2021. This is a global exception. There is no other country globally that actually has that figure. So I think we have to keep that in mind. However, it's not enough. I just give you the figure of the startups, the funding the startups raised from Greeks living outside Greece, what we call Greek diaspora. They managed to raise $7 billion in 2021. So 6 times more than what actually the Greeks in Greece. And also currently we ranked only number 18th in Europe in terms of fundraising. So there is need for the government actually to be proactive. So over the last 20 years, the Greek governments have actually tried to put money into this market. We started in 2000 with TANEO, with 100 million euros. Then in 2006 with Jeremy program, with 200 million euros. And then in 2017 with EcuFund, which was a joint collaboration with EIF, the European Investment Fund, with 300 million euros. So overall, in the last 20 years, some €500 million were invested, mainly to funds to invest in startups. However, things now are exploding. So the present government has decided to actually put more money. So currently, the Hellenic Development Bank of Investment.
Investment, not of me. Yes.
Yes.
First I said it and then I...
Yes.
Okay.
Is currently managing
He's a professor.
2 billion euros that will be invested in funds, private equity or venture capital, which actually they will leverage almost 7 billion euros. We believe that this amount is the right amount for at least 3 to 4 years to actually boost all this great activity which is happening to this small country. And of course, this is not enough. We have to really make some effort to bring some of this diaspora activity outside Greece to Greece, and also try to attract not only startup activity, but research and development activity from big technology companies. And I think the present government is also doing a lot on this side.
Mr. Gavrilidis, the private sector is often accused of not spending enough money to R&D. What is your company doing? And replying that, please also reply to, as a company, you You seem to be unstoppable, and we like what you are doing. You inspire us. However, let us understand what makes you a little bit more anxious, because if I keep this how we started, you will never share this with us.
Okay. What you are saying, I'm afraid what you are saying is true, that the private sector is not investing a lot in R&D. Of course, there are many reasons of that, but since we don't have time, let me run what we are doing. So in Lambda, we decided to invest in R&D in an alternative way. Instead of creating big R&D departments, we decided to form a corporate venture capital fund and invest in startups of strategic business for us, of startups operating in sectors that have a strategic importance for us. And those sectors are the property tech, the retail tech, because we have a lot of malls, the circular economy, and of course the smart city. Now, what we have to offer to those startups, other than money, and I know that money are a lot, but our uniqueness, our unique value proposition to them is that we can offer the Ellinikon project and our malls as a test bed in order for other startups to develop and deploy their technologies, test the product, or even commercialize their product. This is really a win-win solution because for them, it's a big customer and a big test bed. And for us, other than potential financial returns that, of course, are important, the most important thing is that it keeps us in very close relationship with what is going on, what is the technology, and it helps us to create, within Lambda, what we call an entrepreneurial culture, an entrepreneurial and innovative culture, which I think is a prerequisite if we want to build the city of the future, as I told you before. If we don't have this culture, I'm afraid we cannot manage. And those investments in startups will really help us in developing this culture. Another thing that we're doing in terms of R&D is that which is not exactly R&D, but it helps R&D, is that we are thinking of developing an innovation hub within the Ellinikon project. And although this innovation hub is still at the very early steps of inception, we'll very soon launch it with the target to have it ready during the second phase of the development. And the last question was, since there are only 5 minutes for
in a sentence, what are the obstacles or the missing links?
Obstacles are, I think I heard it before, the lack of talent in Greece. A lot of scientists have gone, never come back, and even if they come back, we need to give them appropriate salaries, and with all the burdens and the taxation and the pension payments, this is an enormous cost for the employer. This is number one. Number two is I heard Christos mentioning the entrepreneurial culture, that the private sector needs to develop a real entrepreneurial culture. And there is an old saying in corporation that no middle manager got fired because he or she selected a well-established company as a partner or as a procurement. But what about the startups? What about the young, innovative companies? They never get chosen or selected by middle management because there is a risk. But how can we promote innovation if we don't change this? And I think the third, I also heard it before, is the regulation that always needs to be adapted to adapt to all the changes in technology. Those are the three main challenges, I think.
Thank you. Mr. Kavounidis, 2 questions, because we don't have time. What are the do's to accelerate the growth towards innovation, and what are the threats that you advise to turn them as an opportunity? Consultants are crucial for that. We are afraid, and we have a consultant. He can advise how to turn it to an opportunity. 2 questions fast.
Yeah, I think the challenges have been addressed by everyone a number of times. So I'll skip that and I'll try to finish on a more positive note with the opportunities. I think the current environment is one where innovation can really flourish. I think there's a lot of fundamentals that have been put in place. I think challenging environments drive innovation because they force people to think differently and think out of the box. And I think we're in a country that has purposefully put itself at the forefront of the energy transition journey. And I think the energy transition is one which has innovation at its heart. It has innovation at its heart in my opinion, 3 different dimensions. First of all, clearly we need innovation to find solutions and technologies that will drive us to be able to be carbon neutral in the future. So there's innovating in those technologies. And those technologies don't just need to be invented, but they need to be scaled up. And that's the biggest challenge, scaling them up to be economically viable. There's a number of ways we need to do that, and that needs significant financing. But also there's a case for innovation, for accelerating innovation. If we look back at how new methods, new technologies, new collaboration tools helped drive the accelerated creation of the COVID vaccines, for example. This is a fantastic way of thinking about how new methods of collaborating, new ways of working, new computing solutions, virtual reality solutions, artificial intelligence solutions will help us accelerate innovation also in the energy space. So these are critical, let's say, areas where we have the opportunity to innovate. I think we have in Greece the right environment to innovate, and there are topics where we should be leading because the country aspires to be and is in the position to be a leader on energy and on energy transition in the region.
Thank you. Mr. Doukidis, do we have the talent? Honestly?
Every year, yes, can you hear me? Yes. Every year, some 50,000 young people graduate from Greek universities. So in terms of numbers, we're doing quite well. However, 40% of those are overqualified and 20% are unemployed. So we have the most negative figures in all Europe. However, this problem has an opportunity because currently we have more than 100,000 STEM graduates unemployed. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering. There is no other country in Europe and in globe with this big asset. I'm just talking to colleagues from outside. So this disadvantage can be turned into a main asset for Greece. If we follow a major upskilling and reskilling program, then in a couple of years, we have a big asset that any startup from United States or any large technology company would love to come to Greece because of that asset. So this is a major challenge for the Greek government. How you turn your biggest problem into a huge opportunity.
And Mr. Dimopoulos, what do you think about accusing you that you work in silos? That would be something in the roadmap? What, if not breaking the silos, how we can improve innovation?
Breaking?
The silos.
Well, I think that, we are doing steps towards the right direction. Things are much better now than they used to be several years ago. And I believe that with the dynamic that we have, as Professor Doukidis mentioned, and the critical mass of young scientists that are waiting for jobs to be developed, there is a real opportunity for Greece.
Fantastic. And Mr. Minister, what else do you need to fill in the innovation roadmap of Greece?
Okay,
What can we do?
I'll try to, because I see we're over our time, I'll try to say it in a nutshell. And the word is leapfrogging.
Bravo.
Okay, so we have to link science, research more effectively with innovation and entrepreneurship. We are working on that. We're trying to leapfrog and run faster than our competitors, and also cement the view, the mentality that Greeks can be competitive at a global stage from Greece.
We thank you very, very much for your flexibility in the time. And dear participants, we thank you very much for staying with us and for your participation during the first day of the GIS. There is a drink in the other hall, salle, I don't know how we call it. And may I remind you that tomorrow at 9:30 in the Academy of Athens, we have the inaugural event of the GIS. Thank you very much.